Online. It's not working. There we go. Sawadee-ka. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group where we study the words of the Buddha. We're in volume 3, which is titled Foundation in the Teachings. We're going to be exploring chapters 51 through 60 today, where what we do is a study group where I invite the students from Zoom to be able to read a chapter from our book series. And then after they read the chapter, which is typically fairly brief, then I'm going to share some teachings on that to be able to further help you guys understand how it connects to other teachings of the Buddha and how to integrate it into your day-to-day life. Then I'm going to open up to any and all questions that you have, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. If you're in Zoom and you either have a question or you'd like to volunteer to read, all you need to do is electronically raise your hand and I'll be able to see that. And then I'll call on you and you'll be able to unmute your microphone and either ask your question or read. And then also, if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom and you'd like to ask a question, you can put that into the comment section and I'll be able to see it. So in Zoom, you have all these different options to be able to do that. So the Buddha taught very clear, very concise, and very precise. What I'm doing here is to be able to help students to be able to understand how to integrate these teachings into your day-to-day life, because that's where the real benefit comes, is through integrating these teachings into your day-to-day life. And if you've studied these chapters prior to class, you're going to actually get a whole lot more benefit out of a class like this, because it's not a traditional style of learning. It's more of a study group where it's supporting people in their progress of learning, that if you've already studied either before class or after class, this particular class is to help you to get answers to any questions that you have come across. So if there's anybody in Zoom that would like to read this first chapter, just let me know. And then afterwards, I'll share some teachings on this. Okay, looks like Kristen. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, teacher. Leading to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of afflicted spirit. Monks, the destruction of life, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, the destruction of life, at minimum, leads to a short lifespan. Taking what is not given, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, taking what is not given at minimum leads to loss of wealth. Sexual misconduct, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, sexual misconduct at minimum leads to hostility and competition. False speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, false speech at minimum leads to false accusations. Argumentative speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, argumentative speech at minimum leads to being separated from one's friends. Harsh speech, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, and to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, harsh speech at minimum leads to hearing disagreeable things. Idle chatter, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, idle chatter leads to others distrusting one's words. Drinking liquor and wine, repeatedly pursued, developed, and cultivated, leads to hell, to the animal realm, to the realm of the afflicted spirits. For one reborn as a human being, drinking liquor and wine at minimum leads to madness. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. So here we've got a very unique teaching from the Buddha where he's helping you to really be able to see this natural law of karma. He's teaching the natural law of karma in all of his teachings, helping you to see this cause and effect between certain decisions that we make and the result of that decision. But here he's really showing it in a lot of detail, where you don't typically see this level of detail where he's talking about, for example, destruction of life. And he's saying, okay, if you continue to repeatedly pursue this, develop it, and cultivate it, what it's going to lead to is this rebirth in the realm of hell, the animal realm, or afflicted spirits, the lower realms. Now, he's sharing this as a way to help you understand true reality. He doesn't share things like this in order to guilt, shame, or fear you into doing certain things. He's just, you can see, just saying it kind of like matter of fact. It's just like, here it is. And now you make whatever decisions that you like. He's not going to use guilt, shame, and fear to help you eliminate guilt, shame, and fear. He's just helping you to be able to see true reality of what's actually going to occur if you choose to do these kinds of things. Because all of these things that he's talking about here, it's based in craving, anger, and ignorance, the three unwholesome roots or the three fires, and it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. And when people have extensive amounts of craving, anger, and ignorance, they're reborn into the lower realms. If they do come back into the human realm, the Buddha is providing guidance for what's going to occur in this realm. And not only is this for future lives, but this is for current lives too. That if you're killing, for example, in this life, and you're repeatedly doing that, it's going to lead to a shorter lifespan in this life. You can see this for individuals that are in this life and that do a certain amount of killing. It's very likely for them to be killed themselves. This isn't just about future lives, it's about this natural law. And the way that this occurs is that if you're causing harm to others, harm is going to come back to you. So if you're out there regularly killing and there's a certain amount of craving, there's a certain amount of anger, there's a certain amount of ignorance in the mind, and now it's very likely for someone to actually kill you too. But also, when you're doing a lot of killing, there's a certain amount of stress and anxiety that's in the mind, a certain amount of guilt or shame or fear. And that puts stress on the bodily organs like the heart and the lungs and the liver and the kidneys and all these other bodily functions that we have. That's how an individual's lifespan becomes shorter. So not only does this help you to understand how to develop your practice in this life, because the things that the Buddha is talking about here that leads to rebirth in these lower realms, if you choose not to do these things, it actually leads to enlightenment. Or if you fall short of that, it leads to an improved rebirth. So you can look at it from that perspective too, to understand what is it that I need to really be practicing in order to be able to train my mind to eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance and get closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. So he's talking about the repeated development of destruction of life, of taking what is not given, which is stealing, sexual misconduct, which he gives details on this in the 5 precepts, which I'm going to be teaching tomorrow as part of the group learning program. Then there's false speech, argumentative speech, harsh speech, idle chatter, and then using substances. All of this stuff is going to produce unwholesome results. And he's giving you the unwholesome results that it's producing. So you can see it for yourself and you can independently verify it. Because if you've done any of these things, you can see what it actually does, and you can verify that what the Buddha is teaching you is true. So here, for example, like drinking liquor and wine, taking substances that cause heedlessness. So yeah, he's saying that it's going to lead to this rebirth in hell, animal realm, and afflicted spirit, because there's a certain amount of craving, anger, and ignorance there. And if reborn into the human realm, then it's going to lead to madness. Well, we can see even in this life, if you've ever ingested a certain amount of substances, that it leads to madness in this life. And if you choose not to drink or use drugs, then you can see that it doesn't produce those same results. So this is a teaching that it's very detailed, and you can go through and you can see wherever you've done these kinds of things that it's produced what the Buddha is talking about. Here with argumentative speech, you can see where he talks about it leads to being separated from one's friends, right? So where you've been argumentative and hostile and bitter, you can see that certain friends didn't want to be around you anymore, and it ended relationships for you. So you can verify each one of these types of things that is being shared here. And this is helpful for you to just understand true reality, that if someone repeatedly does this, they're going to be reborn into the lower realms. But if they come back into this life, they're going to be experiencing these types of things that the Buddha is sharing here. and you can experience these things in this life as well. And one other thing I would share with you that you can use a discourse like this to help you understand is that sometimes when we see, like, say, a young child that dies at the age of 2 or 3, people think that's such a tragedy. And that is unfortunate when a being, dies at that early age. But we can understand that this is potentially a being in their past lives that did a certain amount of killing. It doesn't mean that that's always the case, because that would be permanence. But the natural law of karma is the natural law of karma. Everybody's experiencing what they experience. So it can help you to understand what other people are experiencing as well. And you can see this through the natural laws. And it helps you to awaken to that wisdom. And now it can help you not only understand your life and what you're experiencing and what you need to do in order to get to enlightenment, but it can help you understand what other people are experiencing as well, so you don't have such a difficult time dealing with that situation. When you see someone in the news that has maybe died very early, you can understand that, oh, this could be potentially someone who did a certain amount of killing in their previous lives, and that's why their lifespan is so short in this life. So the Buddha is helping you to understand the world around you and why things happen the way it does. That's what the natural law of karma is. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this chapter. Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So let's move on to our next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 52? Okay, looks like Pat. Go ahead, sir.
Reappear in a happy destination. Excuse me. But here, student, some man or woman, abandoning the killing of living beings, abstains from killing living beings. With rod and weapon laid aside, gentle and kindly, he resides compassionate to all living beings. Because performing and undertaking such action, on the dissolution of the body, death, he reappears in a happy destination, even in the heavenly world. But if on the dissolution of the body after death, he does not reappear in a happy destination in the heavenly world, but instead comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is long lived. But here, student, some man or woman is not given to injuring beings with a hand, with a clod, with a stick, or with a knife, because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is healthy. But here, student, some man or woman gives food, drink, clothing, carriages, garlands, scents, ointments, beds, dwelling, and lamps to ascetics or Brahmins. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is wealthy. But here, student, some man or woman is not of an angry and irritable character. Even when criticized a little, he is not offended, does not become angry, hostile, and resentful, and does not display anger, hate, and bitterness. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is beautiful. But here, student, some man or woman is not jealous. One does not become jealous, resentful, and feel bitter about the gains, honor, respect, gratitude, salutations, and veneration received by others. Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is influential. But here, student, some man or woman is not stubborn and arrogant. He pays homage to one who should receive homage. He rises up for one in whose presence he should rise up. Offers a seat to one who deserves a seat. Makes way for one for whom he should make way, and honors, respects, appreciates, and venerates one who should be honored, respected, appreciated, and venerated. Because performing and undertaking such action on the just dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is highborn. But here, student, some man or woman visits an ascetic or a Brahmin and asks, Venerable Sir, what is wholesome? What kind of action will lead to my welfare and peacefulness for a long time? Because of performing and undertaking such action on the dissolution of the body after death, he reappears in a happy destination in the heavenly world. But if instead he comes back to the human state, then wherever he is reborn, he is wise. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So here we have a little bit of an opposite discourse as the last one, where the last one, the Buddha was explaining things that lead to rebirth in the lower realms and what would happen if you're reborn into the human realm. Here he's talking about things that would lead to rebirth in the heavenly realm, or what would occur if you come back into this human state and practicing these types of things. So here, this is also helpful for you to be able to understand this cycle of rebirth and how this is occurring, that it's not anything mystical or magical about these types of things. It's not like there's someone overseeing you and judging you to determine what may or may not happen to you when you're reborn. Instead, it's the status of your mind in terms of these pollutions of craving, anger, and ignorance, depending on how much or how little of these things that you have in your mind. That's what's determining what it is that you experience in your next life. So it's not anybody else determining for us what we will experience. It's our own decisions that are leading to any particular result, because it's our own decision to determine whether or not we train our mind and how much we are dedicated and diligent to doing so, and how much of the craving, anger, and ignorance is eliminated out of our mind. And by us choosing to eliminate that 100%, you would experience enlightenment, and you would know that your mind's enlightened, because you'll see for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years that your mind is not experiencing any discontentedness. But if you fall short of that for any reason, it's all about the level of pollution that's in your mind that's going to determine which realm you're going to be reborn into and what you experience in that particular realm. Each one of these things that the Buddha is talking about is based in craving, anger, and ignorance, whether it's killing or injuring somebody with a weapon, whether it's making offerings, practicing generosity here, whether it's being angry or irritable and so forth and so on with jealousy and all these things. These are, things that the Buddha is saying, if someone is not doing these things, this is what it's going to lead to. Where the previous discourse was, if someone is doing these things, this is what it's going to lead to. Here, he's talking about rebirth in the heavenly world, and you can see that he talks about it just like he talks about rebirth in the hell, animal, or afflicted spirits. He's not guilt, shaming, and fearing you. It's not like, oh my gosh, you're going to be reborn in the lower realms. No, it's not that. And it's like, it's not dangling a carrot and like, wow, you're going to be reborn in the heavenly realm. Just come do these things like this. He's just helping you to see true reality, that it's just kind of matter of fact. Here it is. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to occur. And now you make the decision that's best for you. So he's never guilt, shaming, or fearing you into any particular thing. And it's important to understand that rebirth in the heavenly realm is not the ideal existence. That's not where an individual would aspire to be. Not that there's anything necessarily wrong with the heavenly realm, other than the fact that those beings are experiencing exclusively pleasant feelings. They don't experience painful feelings and feelings that are neither painful nor pleasant. And because of that, only experiencing pleasant feelings, they tend to be complacent. In the human realm and heavenly realm, you can get to enlightenment, but the heavenly beings tend to be complacent and they don't practice the teachings. They're not learning and practicing closely, so they tend to actually be reborn into another realm. You can go from the heavenly realm all the way down to hell or animal or afflicted spirits or back into the human realm. So some people teach you that the goal is to get to heaven and now you're going to live there permanently for eternity. This isn't actually true. We can see the world around us is impermanent and constantly changing. you can get to the point where you've independently verified that universal truth of impermanence. And even though people might have told you in the past that the heavenly realm is permanent, you can know for yourself that that's not true through independent verification of the truth and understanding that that's not an ideal existence. The human realm is actually the ideal existence because you experience pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. You tend to have built-in motivation to be able to make your way to enlightenment because the human being doesn't typically like the painful feelings or the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. And now you have built-in motivation to be able to make your way to enlightenment. But even in the human realm, even with that, people can still be complacent in their growth and development on this path. So here, these are things that the Buddha is bringing to your attention that will be wise to practice, to abandon killing, to abandon injuring beings, to practice generosity, to eliminate anger and irritability and jealousy and all these other things. Because yes, he's saying it leads to the heavenly world, and also these certain results if reborn in the human state. These are also the things that are eliminating craving, anger, and ignorance in your mind, and it leads to enlightenment in this life as well. So let me know what questions you guys have here. Looks like Samantha has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Teacher David. This is just a general question. Can you refresh my memory of how a being would pass, a formless being would pass from one realm to another?
So it depends on which realm they're going into, but
Heavenly.
so going from the heavenly realm to another formless realm or to a form.
Yes, please.
Okay. So beings in the formless realms, they have a set time frame where for us, like in a form realm, animals and humans, the end of this life comes about through decisions that we make in this life. And now, based on the condition of our physical body, this body is going to last for a certain period of time. So, for example, if we're making wise choices about our health, we're going to have a longer lifespan. Whereas if we're making unwise choices like ingesting substances and things like this and doing some of these other things that the Buddha talked about, like killing and stuff, we're going to have a shortened lifespan, right? And our lifespan is determined based on choices that we're making in this life. And it also is based on the condition of the physical body. Where beings in the formless realms, when they're born into that realm, based on the decisions that they made in their previous lives, they're going to be reborn into an existence in that heaven realm or the afflicted spirit or the hell realm, and they're going to have a set time frame when they're actually born into that life. And they don't necessarily know what that set time frame is, but there's a set time frame that they have for that particular life. It's like an expiration date. When they get to that expiration date at the end of that life, they're now, that being dissolves, where the mind, if it's not enlightened, then it's going to still have craving, anger, and ignorance. And that's going to be the spark that now leads to the next life. And now, depending on what they did in that, say, heavenly realm, in terms of what they experienced and the level of their pollution in their mind, it's now going to determine that they are being reborn, say, in the afflicted spirit realm or the hell realm. And then once again, they're going to have a set time frame once they're in that realm based on what they did in their previous life.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, looks like Leo has a question. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I would like to ask how accurately can we take his words here? His words seem very decisive regarding what happens after death. So maybe we can talk more about that. Like if I read this, if I don't kill, or if I can understand that I have more or less anger and hatred in my mind. But it seems like if I only do this, there I already have potential to get to heaven, to the human world. But I think it's not that easy, right? But sometimes he's saying it that simple.
Yeah, so a Buddha is going to talk very clear, very concise, and very precise. They only speak what they know to be true with 100% certainty. They have full confidence in every single thing that they share. They've independently verified every single thing that they share. So here, if he's sharing and teaching like this, then this is what he knows to be true with 100% certainty. He's independently verified it. And ultimately, you will be able to independently verify it too if you continue to learn and practice and peer into this. So you can take his words on face value for exactly what he's sharing. And now you don't believe it, but instead you look for evidence to be able to see it for yourself. That look around the world for people who are killing and those people who aren't killing, and you can see, does it lead to this long life or to this shortened life? And then the same thing with each one of these other things. You can independently verify what he's saying. That's one of the beauties of him giving so much detail like this, is that it's very easy to independently verify. And now you can have confidence in his teachings. But this is the way that a Buddha teaches. It's very clear, very concise, very precise. They're very confident in what they've sharing because they've independently verified it. And then it's up to you to decide for yourself if you would like to independently verify this as well. And that's what's going to ultimately lead to your wisdom and for you to be able to know the truth by you independently verifying it. That's what's going to allow you to then be informed to make wise decisions about what you would choose to do or not do in any given situation.
I understand. But how I can verify if I come to the heavenly world or to the human world, this is not possible for me to verify now. So is it more that a combination of all of these, then I have the potential to, or then I will get to one of these worms? Or is it as he says it? Because you said I can take his words by word, as he said it. He says, right, by abandoning the killing of living beings, then I will get either to the heavenly world or to the human world. Is it that fixed?
The way that you verify the rebirth aspect of this is that if you ever see your past lives and what you were experiencing in those past lives, that's how you can verify this. And at this particular time in your practice, you haven't had that experience, but that doesn't mean you're not going to have that experience in the future. As you train your mind through the Eightfold Path and all those teachings, and you're reducing and eliminating the pollution out of the mind, there's the potential that you might observe your past lives. And that's what's going to help you to be able to verify the rebirth aspect of this. The part where he's talking about what would be experienced in this human life, you can see that through your current existence in the human realm. And this can oftentimes give you enough confidence that these other things that he's sharing is true too. But you still shouldn't just believe those things, but instead verify what you can verify at this point in time. And then the things that you can verify, just set it on the back burner until a point in time where you are able to verify those things.
Okay. Because I'm just trying to figure out how much I can have confidence in what the Buddha is sharing is the truth, right? And here it's, since you also haven't really completely answered my question, I think it's still difficult for me to, I shouldn't believe it, but to think that this is the truth, what he's sharing here. So,
what part of your question haven't I answered?
About like if I don't kill someone, I either come to he's saying it like, if I don't kill, I will get to the heaven or to human world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're saying I can figure this out one day if I'm able to.
Yeah, so I answered your question, right?
Okay.
Is there a part of your question that you think I didn't answer?
I thought maybe you could say, yeah, it's true what the Buddha is saying. I know that this is the truth or something like that. But it's more like, okay, Leo, maybe in a few years you will know if this is the truth. If you see that just by yourself.
That's what I shared, right? So rather than talking about, for me, if you've ever heard me share this, is I've verified all these teachings, or else I wouldn't be teaching them. I've already verified this, but that's not the question that you asked me. You asked me for yourself, so I replied based on yourself. I didn't reply based on me, because if I just tell you like, yeah, I verified this, I know this to be true, well, that you would have to believe. And I'm not interested in you believing that I've verified this. Instead, I'm giving you guidance of how you can verify it. So that's the way that I answered your question, is how you can verify it. And understand that when you're in the process of getting to enlightenment on the path, you're not going to necessarily be able to verify every single thing right now at this exact moment. That's not the way that these teachings work. That there's certain portions of it that you might be able to verify now, and there's certain portions that you can verify later. And that's what I shared with you that I would recommend for you to do.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So let's move on to the next chapter. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Chapter 53. All right, looks like Samantha.
8 worldly conditions: gain and loss, shame and fame, blame and praise, pleasure and pain. These conditions that people meet are impermanent, transient, and subject to change. A wise and mindful person knows them and sees that they are subject to change. Desirable conditions don't excite his mind, nor is he saddened by undesirable conditions.
All right, thank you, Samantha. So these are things that you experience in your day-to-day life, and the Buddha is saying that when you experience the agreeable, you don't get excited, and when you experience the disagreeable, you don't experience sadness. That's what the Buddha would be teaching you as part of the journey to enlightenment, and that's what you would like to be able to train your mind to be able to accomplish. Because if you allow your mind to get the conditioned pleasant feelings when you're experiencing the agreeable, that means when you have the disagreeable, you're going to experience painful feelings. So when you're experiencing gain, so say, for example, your boss walks in and says, wow, you're doing a great job. I'm going to give you $100,000 a year more in your salary. And you get so excited about that gain. That means, 2 years later, when they come in and they say, hey, we need to lay you off, the company's not doing so well. Now you're going to experience the sadness, the frustration, the agitation and annoyance, and all these other discontent feelings. So you would like to be able to train your mind where when your boss comes in and gives you that information, that you have appreciation, you have gratitude, you say thank you, you know that this is going to help enhance your life, but you don't cling to it, and you don't allow your mind to experience conditioned pleasant feelings. This is what the mind needs to learn how to do so that you don't experience the painful feelings when you experience loss. And there's each one of these things that you could potentially experience that would be either seen as agreeable or disagreeable. And what I did is I created a chart down here to be able to help you guys see this, that there's these desirable things that people tend to think about of gain, fame, praise, and pleasure. And then there's these undesirable things of loss, shame, blame, and pain. And you would like to train your mind to be right in the middle, where you're not getting excited when these things are happening and you're not getting sad when these things are happening. But if there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind, then it's going to occur. You don't have to think of yourself as a bad person or a failure or anything like that, but it's going to occur. And you use that as insight to be able to now help you to develop your practice. Sometimes what the mind does is it tries to be perceived as if you're practicing the teachings maybe better than you really are. And maybe you're kind of tricking your mind to think that you're not experiencing excitement or you're not experiencing sadness or frustration. But instead, you really need to look at each situation with an objective mind so that you can see what's actually transpiring in the mind. That's your mindfulness. And as you are aware of what's going on in your mind, now you can use that situation to be able to overcome that challenge for the future. Whereas if there's conceit in your mind and you try to convince yourself, no, I'm not irritated here, or no, I'm not experiencing conditional excitement, then you avoid looking at the situation within your own mind to eliminate any craving and clinging to be able to then overcome that for the future. So the Buddha is giving you a heads up of these 8 worldly things that can occur, and then you need to train your mind to not experience conditioned feelings when these things are occurring. Training your mind to enjoy life without conditioned feelings. Training your mind to have fun and enjoyment without conditioned feelings. That's something that the mind needs to learn how to do. Same thing that learning how to experience certain things that people might think of as undesirable, but without conditioned painful feelings. Like if somebody close to you dies, that's a loss, and that's the way that people tend to think about it. and they think about it as undesirable. But you can get to the point where you have appreciation and gratitude that this person was in your life and you don't see it as a loss. This way, your mind can maintain its peacefulness and its joy even in this situation. Or say you lost your mobile phone, or you lost your luggage. Maybe you're traveling and the airline company lost your luggage. You need to be able to train your mind to not have feelings and emotions based on that, because once you do, now you're going to start having unwise moral conduct. So you'd like to train the mind more and more to come to the middle. And where you see that your mind is not in the middle, that's insight for you to help you be able to see that your mind still has craving and clinging, and you need to eliminate that and bring your mind more and more to the middle. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular chapter. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or raise your hand in Zoom. Looks like Samantha has a question. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yes, Teacher David, how does one discern the difference between apathy and not being affected by conditions? So, for instance, the past year, without giving a lot of detail, I've had severe depression. And with that, people can have a feeling of apathy, of not really caring either way about good or bad. But I've noticed in the past 6 months or so, as I've been feeling more joyful in my mind, or better, that when an event occurs or I'm faced with a condition, my mind will make note that in the past, this would have provoked, an unhappy feeling or a happy feeling, and now I don't. And so in my mind, I feel as if I've shifted a little bit, and that perhaps I'm making progress and not affected by things, and that the teachings are starting to set in a little bit, like the light bulb flickering that you're talking about. But how do I know that that's actually the truth, and that I'm not still just feeling apathetic about things?
The way you'll know is that your mind will be bright and cheerful. It'll be glad and uplifted. There'll be radiance in the mind. And even though when you're experiencing a certain situation, you can maintain that uplifted mind. Because when an individual first gets on the path, there's a huge amount of cravings, desires, attachments that the mind has that it's not even aware of. And the mind's just chasing, getting happy when it gets what it wants and getting unhappy when it's not getting what it wants. So when you start training your mind and you're eliminating these cravings and your mind's pulling away from all those cravings, desires, attachments, the mind's not getting what it wants, which is those cravings to be fulfilled. So what the mind oftentimes does is it swings all the way to the other side, where it feels dull and lethargic, and it feels like life is miserable and life isn't worth living anymore. Some people can even contemplate suicide sometimes, because the mind used to get all this pleasure from all these cravings getting fulfilled. And now the individual's mind isn't getting that anymore because it's peeling away all these cravings, and the mind will tend to swing to the other side. And that's not where the Buddha is teaching you. And you realize that, oh, this isn't comfortable either, because the mind's not getting what it wants. And oftentimes what people will do, if they don't have dedication and diligence in the teachings and they're not confident, they will then just start going back to all their cravings again. And they think that's going to actually solve it. But if you continue to refine the mind and you train the mind with something like the 7 factors of enlightenment, you can now bring the mind to the middle, where you've let go of those cravings and you're not experiencing the sadness and the despair anymore, but your mind has fully let go. Because in the process of letting go, it can be very painful and the mind swings over here. But when the mind fully lets go, that's where it brightens up and you start experiencing the joy that is unconditioned, and the happiness, that radiance, that cheerfulness, where the mind is uplifted. And that's how you'll know that you're not experiencing apathy. And you'll also notice that you still have care and concern. So, like when I experience seeing something on TV or on YouTube where maybe children are living in poverty, I don't get sad, right? And but what I have is I have care and concern. It's like, oh, that's really unfortunate that this is occurring, right? Or like when a war breaks out, that's really unfortunate that that's occurring. So you still have your care and concern, but your mind's still bright and cheerful and radiant and uplifted. So this swinging that I'm talking about, it's the same thing that the Buddha experienced, that when he was in the palace, he was living this life of sensual pleasures. And then when he left, he swung all the way to the other side where he's eating 1 grain of rice per day. And that's what your mind's going to experience, or it sounds like it has experienced, but you're starting to come more to the middle because the mind has maybe let go of more of the cravings, where when you're in the process of letting go, it's very painful. And that's what I talk about, that you have to walk through the fire in order to appreciate the fresh air on the other side. Or I talk about how you got to get out of the mafia, and it's very painful to get out of the mafia. That's what I'm talking about, is how the mind swings to the other side, and it can feel almost depressed, like you're talking about. And it can just feel like apathy or something like that. But when your mind's fully let go of certain cravings, that's where the mind will become more cheerful, bright, glad, and uplifted.
Okay, thank you. I feel like I'm swinging back or settling into the middle way then, because I do feel quite different than I did before I started with the teachings, and the way I felt with previous episodes of depression and whatnot. Like this feels different. I think what you described gives me my answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add to this that you guys can understand is that part of the what you're calling depression, and I call it walking through the fire to appreciate the fresh air on the other side, or getting out of the mafia. This is the unwholesome gamma that an individual has to experience in order to be able to get to enlightenment. That you can't run and hide from your unwholesome gamma. That because the mind had craving in the past, and it was getting pleasant feelings from its cravings being fulfilled, and we lacked wisdom and we allowed that to occur. Now when we're eliminating our craving, desire, attachment, and the mind swings to the other side where it experiences painful feelings, those painful feelings are part of our unwholesome gamma that we have to walk through. We have to experience that in order to get to the point where we've extinguished those cravings, and now we've extinguished our old unwholesome gamma related to those cravings. And now the mind comes into the middle where it can be bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. So this is part of the process of extinguishing unwholesome gamma in order to be able to get to the point where you're only experiencing exclusively wholesome gamma.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions. So let's move to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 54? Okay, looks like Leo. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Deeds were fruit that result in great accomplishment and power. Having cultivated for 7 years a mind of loving kindness, for 7 years concentration and expansion, I did not return to this world. Whenever the eon contrasted, I reached the plane of streaming radiance, and when the eon expanded, I rose in an empty heavenly mansion. And there I was Brahma, the great Brahma, the unvanished victor, the all-knowing, the all-powerful. 36 times I was Saka, ruler of the heavenly beings, and many hundred of times I was a wheel-turning monarch, the king of righteousness, conqueror of the 4 regions of the world of the earth, maintaining stability in the land, in possession of the 7 treasures. What need is there to speak of mere local kingship? It occurs to me, monks, to wonder of what kind of deed of mine is this the fruit? Of what deeds ripening am I now of such great accomplishment and power? And then it occurred to me, it is the fruit of the 3 kings of deeds of mine, the ripening of the 3 kinds of deeds that I am now of such great accomplishment and power. Deeds of giving, of mastery of the mind and of refraining. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Leo. So what the Buddha is describing here is what was it that was the real primary reasons of him being able to get to enlightenment as a Buddha, as a fully, perfectly enlightened one. And he talks about these three things at the end of the discourse. But he starts with first talking about loving kindness and cultivating his mind for loving kindness for these multiple years. And that's helped him to be able to experience certain results. And he talks about this being of God. The way that I look at what he's saying here is he's not saying that he was God, because that being doesn't, regenerate and have multiple existences. This being has been in existence from the beginning of time, and it'll be in existence all the way until the end of time. So here, what I suspect that he's saying is that he could look out at the world as if he was this being. And then he talks about this being of Saka, the ruler of the heavenly beings, that he was this being as well. So he's saying, okay, what is there to speak of this mere local kingship? Because remember, he was a prince destined to become a king. So he's like, essentially, what does it really matter to me to be this king here in this local region when I've already experienced these other things, being in the heavenly realm and so forth and so on. And then ultimately he gets to this point where he says, what is it that actually led to me experiencing this great accomplishment of being able to get to this mental state of being enlightened as a fully, perfectly enlightened Buddha? And he talks about these three things that were the real primary factors for him to be able to train his mind to get to this point of experiencing enlightenment. And these are three things that you would like to pay attention to as well, because if it worked for him, it's going to work for you. So the first one is generosity. This is the big thing that you're going to see when the Buddha talks about his previous lives. Here, he's just talking about it to a certain degree, but there's other discourses that you're going to learn in this book series where he goes into a lot of detail of what he was experiencing in his previous lives. He talks about how he was very generous in those previous lives and in his current life too, that he had to have an enormous amount of generosity to be willing to dedicate his life from the age of 35 to 80 to share the teachings, to help other people, not wanting or expecting anything from them, stepping away from this kingship where he was rich and had all this power and ability to live in this life of luxury, that he steps away from that. And the only things that he accepted was food, clothing, shelter, and medical care in order to sustain his life. So there was an enormous amount of generosity that he practiced in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So you're going to need to practice generosity. And of course, you need to do that from the middle way, where you're not overextending yourself, but you're not being selfish either. So just like he practiced generosity, you're going to need to practice that as well. And then mastery of mind is to discipline the mind. And he gives you guidance of how to do that in the Eightfold Path. And that's part of what helped him to be able to get to enlightenment, is disciplining the mind so that he could then control it. And then refraining or abandoning, choosing to let go and not continuing to chase after things. Understanding that, hey, even though that chocolate cake tastes really, really great and you really like it, you're going to need to go without it for 3 months or 6 months or maybe longer to train your mind to let go. Even though you really, really enjoy listening to music every time you clean the house, you're going to need to go without that for several months in order to train your mind to let that go. You're going to need to refrain your mind from doing that for a period of time. Because oftentimes the reason why we do those things is you might feel like you're bored while you're cleaning the house and you just listen to that music to occupy the mind. But now you're never going to eliminate that craving if you just continue to do it. So you're going to need to refrain from doing that for an extended period of time and learn how to clean your house and not be bored, or how to run on the treadmill if that's something you do and not be bored, even though you don't have music. And now when you overcome that, the beauty of being a household practitioner is you'll actually be able to start listening to music again when you're cleaning. So you need to train your mind, of course, to be able to be happy, whether you're listening to music or not. And right now, if you're cleaning your house and you're always listening to music, you haven't trained it yet to be able to clean your mind and not, clean your house and not listen to music. So you're going to need to do that for 3 months, 6 months, a year, until you get to a point where there's been multiple situations and you can see that you don't have any boredom and you're just as content and just as peaceful cleaning your house without music as with it. And now, once you've done that for an extended period of time and you're sure your mind doesn't have any craving, you can now bring that thing back in. That's one of the beauties of getting to enlightenment as a household practitioner. So there's going to need to be a certain amount of refraining and realizing how this is important for you. So these are the three things that the Buddha is saying, these are the real things that help to really accelerate his ability to get to enlightenment. Of course, there's multiple things that you need to learn and practice, but these are three things to really focus on. Let me know what questions you guys have here by putting that into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So would somebody like to read chapter 55? Okay, Samantha, go ahead, ma'am.
An unsurpassed field of merit for the world. Monks, these 8 persons are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for realization of the fruit of stream entry. The once returner, the one practicing for realization of the fruit of once returning. The non-returner, the one practicing for realization of the fruit of non-returning. The Arahant, the one practicing for realization of the fruit of Arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. The 4 practicing the way and the 4 established in the fruit. This is the upright community, composed in wisdom and virtuous behavior. For people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what is given to the community bears great fruit.
All right, thank you, ma'am. So for those of you guys that have taken the class with me where I teach about what is merit, you might remember this discourse because I use this to be able to help you guys to see what the Buddha teaches about producing merit. What merit is where you're giving and sharing, you're practicing generosity with the benefit of helping other people to be able to get to enlightenment. This is how you can experience merit, where you're making offerings to a teacher or a facility that's going to be helping people to be able to learn and practice the teachings. Because you're going to need to practice plenty of generosity, even with your parents, your siblings, your life partner, your children, your coworkers. You're going to need to practice generosity with multiple different people, training your mind to let go. That's what generosity is doing. Because when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, there tends to be selfishness where the mind's holding on very tightly. So you're going to need to practice generosity with the people around you. And I typically give people many different ways that you can do that and just make it very simple and very easy for yourself, where you're sharing your time, effort, energy, and resources without any expectation of anything in return. But at some point, you might decide you would like to do that in the direction of helping other people to get access to these teachings. This is what we call merit. What the merit is that you're coming in contact with somebody who's either in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment or practicing to get into one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. And now when you're spending time with that person to make an offering, you're developing a relationship in the ability for you to acquire wisdom that's going to help you in your journey to enlightenment. That's what the merit is. It's not anything mystical or magical. It's that you're having the ability to cultivate wisdom. So here, this first part, the Buddha is saying there's these 8 people that are worthy of gifts, hospitality, offerings, reverential salutation, this unsurpassed field of merit for the world. And what are those 8? And he says the stream enterer, the once returner, non-returner, and arahant, as well as the individuals who are practicing for the realization of those things. These are the 4 stages of enlightenment. Stream enterer is the first stage, once returner is the second, non-returner is the third, and arahant is where the mind's actually enlightened. So if you're coming in contact with someone who's either in one of these 4 stages or practicing for the realization of this, and you make offerings to them, you're now building a relationship with that person that allows you to now cultivate wisdom to be able to learn and grow and develop on the path yourself. That's where the benefit is coming in, to be able to make offerings to this types of people. You shouldn't have an expectation of these people to be any particular way or to, function in any particular way, but this is an opportunity for you to be able to cultivate wisdom. And the Buddha goes on to explain this further down here, because you're going to need to learn how to determine whether somebody's in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment in order to make offerings, right? The Buddha understood that you wouldn't necessarily know early on in your journey how to determine whether somebody's in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment. So he gives you a shorthand way of understanding this in other discourses and other teachings that you're going to see as part of this particular book series, that he suggests to you to observe the quality of someone's mind. And he says if people are muddle-minded, meaning they're lacking concentration and clarity and focus, that they're not practicing his teachings very well. So therefore, it wouldn't be wise for you to make offerings to those individuals. And you need to be able to observe someone's mind without judging them and looking down on them, but instead just being able to see, is this particular teacher or the people that are leading this particular community, are they muddle-minded? If they speak very clear, concise, and precise about the teachings, then you can be assured that they have the potential of being able to practice the teachings very closely because you see their minds focused and concentrated. You can also look at a person's moral conduct. Are they doing things that the Buddha teaches that is wise or unwise? Like if you go into a temple environment and you see ordained practitioners who are smoking cigarettes, or they're using profanity, or they're gambling, or maybe they're being abusive to the animals that are around and things of this nature. You might see these kinds of things. As you see these kinds of things, you know that that individual isn't practicing the teachings very closely, and you would like to make wise decisions about where to support, because everything that the Buddha is teaching you is based in discernment, including where you practice your generosity. You would like to be sure that you're practicing discernment there. And that's what he's getting to when he talks down here. He says, the 4 practicing the way, the 4 established in the fruit, this is the upright community, composed in wisdom and virtuous behavior or moral conduct. Now, he referred to his community oftentimes as the upright community or the straight community. You'll see this occasionally, that we might think that during the lifetime of a Buddha, that he's the only one teaching. He's the only game in town. Because if you live during the lifetime of a Buddha, you'd like to learn from a Buddha, right? You're not interested in learning from other people. You'd like to learn from that person. But not everybody knows who a Buddha is when they're actually in existence. Not everybody is able to determine that this person is a Buddha, or has the understanding that this person is a Buddha. So during the lifetime of a Buddha, they're going to be teaching, and their community is going to be getting closer and closer to enlightenment, but there's going to be other people who are teaching too. So the Buddha often referred to his community as the upright community or the straight community, because he knew that they were learning the true wisdom of what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment, that they're composed of wisdom, and they're also functioning in a way that is virtuous, right? So these are the people that the Buddha is saying that would be wise to be able to support, is the community that's functioning in this way. And that's how you can look at the individuals that you're choosing to support or not support. You can look at, do they have the wisdom of the teachings? Can they expand upon the teachings? Do they have a proper moral conduct? And this can give you assurances that they're practicing the teachings, because as you make offerings, you would like to be able to also glean insight and wisdom from that person that's going to then help you. And you would like to be sure that whatever offerings that you make, that it's going to help other people get access to the teachings that's going to be able to help them. Then here the Buddha says, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he's talking about here is, of course, you acquiring that merit, meaning that you're cultivating wisdom and learning how to get to enlightenment yourself. But making merit that ripens in the acquisitions means that cultivation of that wisdom through coming in contact with one of these 8 persons and making offerings gives you the ability to cultivate that wisdom, and it ripens, or the result is that you acquire one of these 4 stages of enlightenment as well. That's what it means that it ripens in the acquisitions, that you now have the ability through the cultivation of wisdom to acquire one of these 4 stages of enlightenment yourself by learning and growing and developing through the wisdom of this individual that you're coming in contact with. And then he says, what is given to the community bears great fruit. Because whenever an individual makes an offering to a teacher, yes, they're making that offering to the teacher, but they're making an offering to the community, that this is something that the community is going to be able to benefit from. That maybe they're giving it to the actual teacher, but those resources that are being shared are for the community. And a wise teacher would be using a certain amount of the resources that are being shared in order to sustain their life. But then there should be offerings that are coming back to the community. There should be classes, courses, retreats. There should be the ability to continue to learn and grow and develop. That's the great fruit that is coming to the community. That now that through the community supporting a teacher or a facility, that now there's this ability for the teachings to reach in access so that the community can now access the teachings and be able to learn and grow and develop. Now, there's certain places that don't necessarily practice this, especially in other countries. There might be places that are using teachings like the Buddha to be able to enrich themselves. And where you see that kind of thing, you're not interested in supporting that. You would like to support individuals where the teachings are being offered to be able to help other people, that you see that this person isn't enriching themselves, but instead they're actually sharing the resources with the community to be able to grow and develop the community. Because in places like here in the USA, you can see people that are taking in a bunch of money and maybe they're flying around in private jets or they're living in mansions and they're, doing all these different things. It can happen with, other traditions, but it can happen with Buddhism too. It's even happened in Thailand before, where there was an individual who was buying like Gucci bags and Fendi sunglasses and stuff like this. And they were riding around in a private airplane that they had chartered. The Thai people take this very seriously. And when they found out about this, they actually went to arrest this person because they were ordained as a Buddhist monk. And they knew that they weren't using the funds from the temple in the way that is prescribed by the Buddha and taught by the Buddha. So when they went to arrest him, this person left and they ran away. And they found out that this individual was in the USA. So they put out an Interpol warrant to ask the US police to arrest this person. And they actually arrested this person and they extradited him back to the Thailand. And he went through the court system and he was found guilty of fraud and embezzlement. And he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. So the Thai people take this kind of stuff very seriously. And it would be wise for you to also use discernment so that you're making offerings to individuals who you know and have confidence in that is either in one of these 4 stages or practicing for the realization of one of these 4 stages, because it's going to help ensure that you're cultivating the wisdom that you need to be able to get to enlightenment, but it also provides the ability for other people to be able to get to enlightenment as well. So let me know what questions you guys have here on this particular teaching about merit. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So now we'll go to the next chapter, 56. It looks like Pat would like to read that one. Go ahead, sir.
People who generate much merit. Monks, whenever virtuous monastics come to a home, the people there generate much merit on 5 grounds. What 5? 1, virtuous monastics come to their home and they arouse hearts of confidence toward them. On that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to heaven. 2, when people rise, pay homage, and offer a seat to virtuous monastics who come to their home, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to birth in high families. 3, when people remove the stain of selfishness toward virtuous monastics who come to their home, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great influence. 4, when, according to their means, people share what they have with virtuous monastics who come to their home, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great wealth. 5, When people question virtuous monastics who come to their home, make inquiries about the teachings, and listen to the teachings, on that occasion, that family is practicing the way conducive to great wisdom. Monks, whenever virtuous monastics come to a home, the people there generate much merit on these 5 grounds. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Pat. So here the Buddha is helping you to be able to see how to practice and what will actually lead to by practicing in this way. So this is about practicing generosity to produce merit. Notice that when he's talking here about practicing generosity with ordained practitioners, which is monastics, he always prefaces it with this virtuous, right? If you can imagine during the lifetime of a Buddha, there's going to be countless people who are learning and practicing his teachings. And during his life, there were many people who had ordained with him, but not all of them are practicing the teachings closely. And he's encouraging people to be able to make offerings to people who are practicing the teachings closely. And this close group of people who are practicing the teachings closely, now the teachings can come into the world more and more vibrantly. So you would like to use discernment to make sure that people are virtuous and they're practicing good, wholesome moral conduct before you start making offerings to individuals. And as you do so, the Buddha is giving you guidance on some of the things to be able to make offerings. And he gives you these 5 different things that he's talking about here. And this is helping you eliminate the selfishness in the mind. And it's also helping you to cultivate the ability to learn the teachings and cultivate wisdom. You're producing wholesome gami here in these 5 ways. And the Buddha makes this very clear of how to be able to do that. If you have questions, just let me know. You can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Okay, I don't see any questions. So we'll move to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read chapter 57? Okay, it looks like Kristen. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, teacher. Adjusted to a balanced pitch. Tell me, Sona, in the past, when you lived at home, weren't you skilled at the lute, a stringed instrument? Yes, venerable sir. What do you think, Sona? When its strings were too tight, was your lute well tuned and easy to play? No, venerable sir. When its strings were too loose, was your lute well tuned and easy to play? No, venerable sir. But Sona, when its strings were neither too tight nor too loose, but adjusted to a balanced pitch, was your lute well tuned and easy to play? Yes, venerable sir. So too, Sona, if energy is aroused too forcefully, this leads to restlessness. And if energy is too soft, it leads to complacency. Therefore, Sona, be determined on a balance of energy, spiritual faculties, and take up achieving evenness of the subject there. Yes, venerable sir, the venerable Sonia replied. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kristen. So this venerable Sonia, she was a ordained practitioner, but at one time she was a household practitioner. She played this lute, which was a stringed instrument. And this is where people talk about this stringed instrument because it comes from this particular teaching here, where the string's too tight or too loose, the instrument doesn't play beautiful music. It doesn't play the way the instrument is intended to play. It's only when it's tuned perfectly to the middle that it plays the way it's intended to play. And this is the discourse that the Buddha taught in order to help people to understand that. This is where he describes the middle way. The Eightfold Path he describes as that middle way. That's what's going to bring the mind to the middle and tune it to be in the middle. Whereas if it's too tight or too loose, you see that there's this restlessness and this complacency that the Buddha talks about. But when you tune the mind and bring it to the middle, that's where it can perform optimally. And this is the discourse where the Buddha talks about this. A very famous analogy that you hear frequently about the Buddha's teachings. Any questions you guys have here on this chapter? Just let me know. All right, I don't see any questions anywhere. So would someone like to read chapter 58? Okay, Leo, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. The pleasure of sleep. What do you think, monks? Have you ever seen or heard that a head anointed Kratia king while exercising rule all his life? is pleasing and agreeable to the country if he spends as much time as he wants, yielding to the pleasure of rest, the pleasure of inactivity, pleasure of sleep? No, venerable sir. Good monks, I too have never seen or heard of such a thing. What do you think, monks? Have you ever seen or heard that a royal official, a favorite son, a general, a village headman, a club master, while exercising leadership over the club all his life, is pleasing and agreeable to the club if he spends as much time as he wants, yielding to the pleasure of rest, the pleasure of inactivity, the pleasure of sleep? No, venerable sir. Good monks, I too have never seen or heard of such a thing. Monks, what do you think? Suppose there is an ascetic or Brahmin who spends as much time as he wants, yielding to the pleasure of rest, the pleasure of inactivity, the pleasure of sleep. One who does not guard the doors of the sense spaces, who is immoderate in eating and is not intent to wakefulness, who lacks insight into wholesome qualities, who does not reside intent on the effort to develop the aids to enlightenment in the earlier and later phases of his night. Have you ever seen or heard that such a one, with the destruction of the taints, has realized for himself without direct knowledge in this very life the taintless liberation of mind, liberation of wisdom, and having entered upon it, resides in it? No, venerable sir. Okay, good monks. I too have never seen or heard of such a thing. Therefore, monks, you should train yourself thus. We will guard the doors of the sense spaces, be moderate in eating, and be intent to wakefulness. We will have wisdom into wholesome qualities and will reside intent on the effort to develop the aids of enlightenment in the early and later phases of night. Thank you.
Okay.
Others monks, should you train yourself?
Okay. Thank you, Leo. So here, what the Buddha is talking about is, have you ever heard of anybody who has accomplished anything wonderful by being complacent? Right? He talks about these royalty, right? Have you ever heard of anybody being this excellent king, but yet they're complacent? And the students are like, no. You know, have you ever heard of anybody doing any of these things and been complacent and experienced certain improvement in their life? No. And then ultimately says, have you ever heard of an ascetic or a Brahmin who's complacent, but yet they've actually gotten to enlightenment? And they say no, right? Because that's what he's saying down here. He says, have you ever heard of such a one, someone who's complacent, with the destruction of the taints, has realized for himself with direct knowledge in this very life, the taintless liberation of mind, liberation by wisdom, and having entered upon it, resides in it, right? Because at the beginning, he talks about this individual who's just so complacent. It's just kind of laying around and really not doing anything to cultivate their wisdom and apply effort to develop their mind. And the answer is no, there's nobody like that. There's no enlightened being who is complacent. You just wouldn't have that. And he's like, okay, well, in that case, be sure you guard your doors, right? You need to guard those sense spaces, that you're moderate in eating, that you're not just like gorging in food, that you're intent on wakefulness, that you're intent in getting this mind to cultivate wisdom and being awake, that you have this wisdom of what are wholesome qualities, and that you reside intent on the effort to develop the aids to enlightenment, things like concentration and mindfulness and applying right effort and things of this nature. So let me know what questions you guys have on this chapter. This is all to help you be able to see that you will not get to any beneficial results in life through complacency. Okay, I don't see any questions there. So now we'll go to chapter 59. Is there someone who would like to read this? Okay, Samantha, go ahead, ma'am.
One who is constantly dedicated. But monks, if a sensual thought, a thought of ill will, or a thought of harming arises in a monk while walking, and he does not tolerate it but abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, and obliterates it, then that monk is said to be dedicated and to have moral concern of wrongdoing, constantly and continuously energetic and determined while walking. If a sensual thought, a thought of ill will, or a thought of harming arises in a monk while standing, and he does not tolerate it, but abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, and obliterates it, then that monk is said to be dedicated and to have moral concern of wrongdoing. He is constantly and continuously energetic and determined while standing. If a sensual thought, a thought of ill will, or a thought of harming arises in a monk while sitting, and he does not tolerate it, but abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, and obliterates it, then that monk is said to be dedicated and to have moral concern of wrongdoing. He is constantly and continuously energetic and determined while sitting. If a sensual thought, a thought of ill will, or a thought of harming arises in a monk while wakefully lying down, and he does not tolerate it, but abandons it, dispels it, terminates it, and obliterates it, then that monk is said to be dedicated and to have moral concern of wrongdoing. He is constantly and continuously energetic and determined while wakefully lying down.
All right. Thank you, Samantha. This is a discourse of one who is constantly dedicated. Chapter 60 is one who is constantly complacent. And it's similar to the discourse that we just shared, that the Buddha was speaking. Here, the only difference is he's just flipping things around. That he's basically saying, if you have a sensual thought, if you have ill will in your mind, or you have a thought of harming that arises, and you don't do anything about it, you tolerate it, you do not abandon it, you do not dispel it or terminate it or obliterate it, then you're lacking effort and moral concern of wrongdoing. It is constantly and continuously complacent, and you're lacking energy to be able to now apply the effort that's needed to be able to get to enlightenment. So we can understand complacency and dedication in terms of if somebody's regularly meditating or not meditating, or if they're regularly coming to class or not coming to class, or if they're regularly reading or not reading. We can understand dedication and complacency through that. But the Buddha takes it all the way to the level that if you have a sensual thought, a thought of ill will, or a thought of harming in the mind, and you do nothing about it, then you're complacent, because you're not going to actually get to enlightenment if you allow these unwholesome thoughts to come into the mind. You need to develop your mindfulness to be so well tuned that you can see any of these unwholesome thoughts that are coming into the mind, and you then apply effort to cut that off and abandon it and get it out of the mind. If you continue to allow the mind to have these types of thoughts, your mind's just going to stay wired that way, and they're just going to continue to exist in your mind. So yes, you need to apply dedication and determination to meditation, to reading, to coming to class and things like that. But that's just giving you the intellectual understanding to then actually practice the teachings on a day-to-day basis. And your practice needs to be developed to the level that you can observe and notice when these thoughts are coming into the mind. And you can cut them off and let them go, not allowing your mind to stay wired that way. This is where you can have dedication, determination, and diligence, and the mind won't be complacent. So let me know what questions you guys have here. This is helping you to be able to see truly what complacency is, because it will hinder you from getting to enlightenment. If you are complacent in your practice, you will not get to enlightenment. So if you allow those thoughts to keep coming into the mind, you won't get to enlightenment. You need to be determined and dedicated. You need to have the effort, understanding that you're a work in progress and you're not going to catch it every single time. And you need to develop your practice to be able to catch it every single time. But you need to have the determination enough that you're willing to do that and be vigilant and watching over your mind. So you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom. Okay, I don't see any questions anywhere. So I'm going to end class the way I typically do by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path. Next week, we're going to be in the next 10 chapters. So we're going to be studying chapters 61 through 70. If you guys would like to read those before class or after class, that will surely help you. And thank you for everybody who read. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for even participating in the class. It's wonderful to see you guys coming together each week to be able to learn and practice these teachings. So thank you for your dedication to at least coming to class. And now you're getting more and more of the wisdom of what it takes to be able to move the mind to this enlightened mental state. So today, tomorrow, and on Monday, I'm going to be teaching here in the USA. So for those of you guys that are, on this time zone or close to this time zone, you'll be able to learn if you like. I'm teaching the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course. So today I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path, and I'm live streaming it. And then in the afternoon, I'm going to be teaching breathing mindfulness meditation. So you guys are welcome to attend these classes if you like. Tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching what is Gamma. Tomorrow I'm going to be teaching the three poisons, the three unwholesome roots. I'm going to be teaching the 5 precepts, and I'm going to be teaching walking meditation. That's what I'll be teaching here tomorrow. And it's from 9:30 California time until 3:30 California time. And then on Monday at 6:30 California time, I'm going to be teaching what is Gamma and how does it affect me, what is merit, and continued support on the path to enlightenment, how to integrate the teachings into your day-to-day life. And then I'm still teaching the regular classes for the group learning program as well. So this evening at 7 p.m. California time and 7 a.m. tomorrow, I'm going to be teaching the 5 precepts there as well. So you guys are welcome to join any of these classes that you would like to join, because I'm going to be live streaming even from here at Vibhav's house. So thank you guys again for all your support and your willingness to be able to learn these teachings and grow and develop and provide me the support I need to be able to share these teachings with you and countless other people. So thank you so much, and have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you in the next class. Take care. Sawadee-ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.